Last week on this channel, I reviewed Judas and the Black Messiah, which was a historical drama. And having seen that movie and having gotten interested once again in historical dramas, it made me want more. So I did a little bit of searching to find out what other historical dramas that I haven't yet seen were available on the streaming networks that I currently have available to me right now. And I found this one. This is a 2011 film, which can be streamed right now on HBO Max, which is where I streamed it. It's about the 2008 financial crisis, and it was released in 2011, so it's quite a few years old at this point. But I had not heard of it before, and I had not seen it before, so it was new to me, and it was good. It was well done. So, in terms of history, this is obviously more recent history. In fact, these are years that I lived through, and I think most of you lived through and can maybe even vaguely remember. Although the complexity of everything that was going on eluded me at the time. So I remember hearing about stuff in the news, Bear Stearns, Goldman Sachs, Lehman Brothers, Freddie Mae, etc., AIG, all this stuff you were hearing about, but exactly what was going on, I only really understood in the vaguest of terms. I knew that there was some sort of crisis going on, and I think that was about it, at least as memory serves. It's possible I knew more at the time and I just don't remember it, but I remember just kind of only knowing that there was some sort of crisis, but not really knowing in concrete details, certainly the sequence of what had happened. So this movie does a very good job of dramatizing what was going on from the perspective of the Treasury Secretary, a guy who is named Hank Paulson, I believe. Let me double check that name. Hank or Henry Paulson. The movie is told from his perspective, with him being the main protagonist. There are many other characters in the film. It's one of those films which is juggling a lot of characters. And it's one of those historical dramas where a character will show up on screen and then underneath him will be like his name and his title to help you keep track of it. You know what I mean, right? One of those movies where they have little subtitles underneath each character identifying their name and position, at least the first time they appear. But mainly from the perspective of Hank Paulson, the Treasury Secretary, who is trying to navigate this financial crisis. And there's a couple things going on which makes the movie interesting. One is the sequence of dominoes falling. So it's not just kind of everything happening at once. There actually was a sequence of first this happened, and that caused this to happen, and that caused this to happen, and that caused this to happen. And the Treasury Secretary, Hank Paulson, the whole time is out ahead of this, trying to get ahead of this, trying to solve these problems as they're breaking out, and he's partially successful in mitigating the damage, but he just can't seem to stop these dominoes from falling, as he and his team are just working overtime trying to find solutions. The other interesting thing which makes this movie interesting to watch is that there are a number of different competing interests. So he's got international interests, he's got a bunch of different CEOs of a bunch of different firms who view themselves or view each other all as competitors, and so are only reluctantly helping each other to try and avert this crisis. He's got the whole political thing. He's got to deal with Congress, and even though he is working in the Bush administration as a Republican, he's got a very hard time getting the other Republicans to get in line with him on this, because it's very politically unpopular to bail out the banks when everybody knows that the banks have caused this crisis. And as the movie portrays it, Hank Paulson is very reluctant to intervene. He would much prefer the free market to take care of itself, and it's not the job of government to interfere in the economy. And that is the position he wants to take at the beginning of the movie. But as events are happening, he realizes, and it is brought to his attention by other people, that not intervening is going to be catastrophic. And so he is forced by events to continually modify his policy of non-government intervention in this economy until, by the end of the movie, the government is kind of fully involved in injecting cash and buying troubled assets off these companies and just really essentially taking over. I am not the person to evaluate how factually accurate this movie is, since, as I just said prior to watching the movie, I know very, very little about it. But from what little research I've been able to do on YouTube and also on Google, etc., apparently the movie is very accurate. It's based on a book, a nonfiction book of the same name. And I'm sure they had to, when you dramatize stuff, you're losing a little bit of accuracy. But I believe everything portrayed in this movie actually happened. Somebody said on Reddit that a number of quotes are verbatim in the movie. I guess that they must be sourced from the book, and I don't know where the guy got his sources from in the book, but these reporters are very good at getting a lot of people to talk on or off the record and reconstruct conversations. Now I did see at least one YouTube video that was mentioning that because this is all from Hank Paulson's perspective, makes him out to be the hero, whereas in actuality, he may have let his bias cloud his judgment because he had previously worked for Goldman Sachs and he had viewed Lehman Brothers as a competitor, and that's maybe why he did not bail out Lehman Brothers, even though Lehman Brothers was asking for a bailout. These are events that take place in the first half of the movie, and then kind of the second half of the movie is dealing from the fallout from Lehman Brothers going bankrupt. I guess I'm just going to assume that the events portrayed in this movie are more or less accurate. The movie, there are any number of morals that you could draw out from this movie. And I don't know how much I want to harp on this, because I think to a large extent you watch the movie yourself and you take away what you want to take away from it. The movie itself doesn't moralize too much. There are, I think, maybe two things that the movie hits on the nose. One thing is that more regulation could have prevented this. So this whole thing was a failure of government regulation, and that's the movie hits it on its nose because it puts these words essentially in the mouths of its characters. So this is definitely a message that the movie wants you to take away. The other thing that the movie really wants you to take away is that these bankers were just too greedy. And even as they were getting bailed out, they were still concerned above all else about their bonuses and preserving their bonuses and making sure these bailouts wouldn't mess with their bonuses. And again, this is something the movie is not subtle about because it puts it in the mouth of the characters. And then after the movie ends and the screen fades to black and there's those words that tell you what happened afterwards, make a point of highlighting that they still gave themselves very big bonuses for that year, even though they had been bailed out by government money. And if you remember those years, or if you lived through those years, which again is I think all of you, right? It wasn't that long ago. That if there's one thing you'll remember from this whole crisis, it would be that, because the public anger about the bankers still giving themselves that huge bonus even when they had to be bailed out by taxpayer money was that was inescapable, wasn't it? That was all over everywhere. So yeah, those are the two notes that the movie hits. Aside from that, as to like the role of government and the role of industry and the role of finance and all that kind of stuff, I think you would be largely left to draw your own conclusions. Something which struck me, and I have my own biases, so take me with a grain of salt, or don't take my opinion at all and watch the movie yourself and make your own conclusions. But what struck me is that capitalism doesn't work. Or at least it does not work without heavy intervention. I think that was my takeaway from this movie, which was something I had. It's not the first time I've come to that realization, but watching this movie, I was again reminded of it. That had not the government heavily intervened as they did in 2008, this whole system would have collapsed, it was only because of a heavy government intervention that prevented the financial system from collapsing, which I think is equivalent to say that the capitalism did not work. Left to its own devices, it would not have worked. And this is something which on the one hand is so obvious, but on the other hand is very easy to forget in American culture, when everybody always tells you that capitalism is the only economic system that can possibly work, and all the other economic systems are good in theory, but they would never work in real life. I had lessons in high school social studies, which I think are a very common experience in America, where the teacher was explaining the difference between the various economic systems. He was talking about socialism. And he said, yes, socialism would be beautiful on paper. Everybody gets the same amount, everyone's equal, everyone shares everything, how nice that would sound. But he said, it just doesn't work. It goes against human nature. And the implication would be, well, capitalism might be just an unsavory system built on human greed, but it works because it counts on humans being greedy, and humans are greedy, and so the system works and the other systems don't. Most Americans have had some sort of experience like that in their secondary education when they were learning about economic systems. By all means, let me know in the comments what your experiences were in school learning about these systems. But the clear takeaway from the events of 2008 is actually capitalism does not work, or capitalism will only work if the government periodically has to bail out all the financial industry. But that if you're going to say that capitalism only works when the government rushes in to save it every 20 years, then essentially you could make the same excuses for socialism. The socialist experiments of the 20th century were largely a failure, unless there was heavy government intervention, or the government put their hands on the till to rejig everything, or open up free market economies on the sides, or something like that. But but the point being, if you allow capitalism, if you say, well, capitalism works fine as long as the governments bail it out every once in a while, then I think it's only fair to say, well, socialism works fine as long as the governments every now and again bring in a little bit of free market enterprise to kind of put some juice into it, right? Like you get the point. Hopefully, you can't say that one system works great on paper but doesn't work in reality, and the other system works in reality, because capitalism works fine on paper, but in reality we have these boom and busts and government bailouts, and the government has to come in to save the banks, etc. I've made my point, haven't I? Let me move on to talk about other things. The movie moves at a very fast clip, which is good. I think it's a movie where you have to pay close attention, and you have to pay close attention right from the beginning. So, at the beginning when the movie was still opening up, I was on my phone a little bit, and I got lost very quickly and had to go back to the beginning and watch it again. So it's not a movie that you can watch on your phone. And in that respect, I think it's a movie that respects your intelligence as a viewer. It says, okay, we're going to go through a lot of stuff very quickly. Keep up. Pay attention. Although, I guess the flip side of that is, if you're concerned about attention spans and stuff like that, it's in many ways a movie catered to a short attention span, because even though it does demand your attention, it's just giving you so much information so quickly and moving from scene to scene to scene. So it's not like those older movies where, the scenes are moving very slowly and you have to kind of relax and not be so impatient. It's an intelligent movie, but a movie catered towards modern people with short attention spans. Perhaps. Or maybe I'm being ungenerous. It is my takeaway anyways. There were times when I did not quite understand all the financial terms that were being bandied about, and I've read other reviews of this movie that say likewise. There was one review I saw somewhere from an economist who said, I worry that somebody who doesn't have my training as an economist wouldn't be able to catch the significance of some of the stuff that's going on. And that's probably me. Some of the dialogue, I didn't catch the significance of it. But the film moves at such a fast clip, and it sets up narratives and characters and conflicts that you can follow those even if the numbers, the mathematics of it is a little bit opaque to you. You can still follow the drama of what's going on very easily, and the sequences of what's going on, and the overall thing that such and such a bank is in financial trouble. You can definitely follow that aspect of it, even if you don't understand the whys of it. On the whole, I found it a very entertaining movie. Oh, it's got lots of famous people in it as well. A lot of good actors, a lot of actors you recognize from other movies. The guy who plays the main guy, Hank Paulson, is William Hurt, who I don't think I've heard a lot about him beforehand. Looked him up on Wikipedia, and he's definitely been in some stuff I've seen. For example, he played General Thaddeus Ross in the Marvel Cinematic Universe until he passed away a few years ago. I've seen him in that. I've seen him in some other stuff, but I didn't really recognize the name. But I think he's famous in some circles. And Paul Giamatti, Bill Pullman, Topher Grace, that's his name, right? Topher Grace. Topher Grace. Matthew Modine. Ed Asner as Warren Buffett. Good cast, good acting, good writing. A very interesting film. If you like these sort of docudramas about recent history, you'll like this one.